Hey, I'm Michael Hoff with Digital Theologian, and recently I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with Dr. John Byron, professor of New Testament and dean of Ashland Theological Seminary. And during that conversation, we talked about a number of topics. You can check out the full video, but I thought it might be a little bit helpful to break it down into smaller chunks. This video is on the Septuagint. Who wrote it? How did it come to be? And how does it impact both the New and Old Testament in the Bible today? So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Byron, and I'll see you on the other side.
For your listeners who are not familiar, the Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. The word Septuagint just simply means 70. The tradition is that 70 scholars in Egypt, about 200 years before the time of Jesus, went off in their own private rooms. As I said, this is the legend. And they were translating, just the first 5 books, the Pentateuch. And they all came out, and lo and behold, all of their translations were accurate. I tell that story, Michael, for 2 reasons. One, because I do think it's a legend, but it's an interesting one. But I also think it does scratch an itch for us that we see even today. Yeah. And that is the desire of people, even then, to have this, how accurate is this, Yeah. Which I think we should see, even though I think that story is a legend. I think it reflects, though, a greater desire by all people of faith to make sure they had the best possible copy of the scriptures that they could, to whatever extent that legend is or is not true. But yeah, so that's what we call the Septuagint. We use that term now to talk more broadly about all of the Greek Old Testament. You'll see its abbreviation quite frequently is LXX, the Roman numerals for 70, thus Septuagint. And the fact is, this was the Bible that was used by Paul and others when they're quoting from the Old Testament, because the fact is that most Jews during the time period of the New Testament did not live within Judea. They did not live within Galilee. They were living dispersed, what we call the diaspora, in places like Alexandria, Greece, Antioch, Rome, Athens, Corinth, Babylon. And because Greek was the most common language in those days, the Bible was translated into Greek. Hebrew, in many ways, was situated mostly in Israel in those days, in synagogues. And even then, a lot of times it was Aramaic, which is we can talk about that. It's a form of language from ancient Iraq area, but using Hebrew letters. So, and Jesus probably spoke Aramaic and Hebrew, maybe even some Greek. But yeah, the fact is that they were quoting the Septuagint. And at times there are, uncomfortably for us, some differences. I'm clicking here because I'm looking at, the one that we are probably the most familiar with, and I'm just going to go there since we're among friends, is in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, where Matthew quotes Isaiah 7:14. And says, "Look, the virgin shall become pregnant and give birth to a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel." And this is well known, and as you would say, conspiracy theorists would like to, they would like to look at this and say, "Aha! See, in the Septuagint it says Parthenos, which is virgin, but in the Hebrew it just simply says a maiden or young lady." So therefore, Matthew has you hear me, he's misquoting or mistranslating because he used the word Parthenos, virgin. Well, granted, this does present to us some challenges, particularly as people of faith. How do we understand this? Yeah. When you look back at Isaiah 7, verse 14, I mean, that was a specific prophecy to Ahaz and to a specific about a woman in the house. It wasn't necessarily talking about Mary, and it could have been any young woman, but that word can also mean a virgin. But when the Greek translators went from Hebrew to Greek, when they were writing again what we call the Septuagint, they chose the word parthenos, virgin. That's what Matthew used, and he applies that to Mary. It's really wrong for us to see this as Matthew mistranslating or misquoting. Matthew's using the translation that he had, and really what he's trying to communicate is the same kind of promise that God made to the king of Judah at that time when they were living under occupation is the same kind of promise that's now being made to the people of Judea when they're living under occupation at that time. A woman, a virgin, a young woman is going to have a child. Obviously, we could peel the scab on this one back a lot further and talk about this, but it really does, quite frank, it annoys me when people try to drill down on something like this and say, see, therefore you can't trust, this. Yeah. And I would say, well, that's interesting because Luke also talks about a virgin birth and he never quotes this scripture. So obviously the tradition and the belief that Jesus was born of a virgin is much bigger than one quotation out of Isaiah.
I hope you enjoyed that breakdown of the Septuagint with Dr. Byron. You can check out the full video up here, or if you want, you can check out a variety of other videos that I've made on the Bible here, and here. So thank you very much for watching. May God bless you, and I'll see you in the next one.